Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. Alan Miller, your host, and these days we have to identify ourselves as hosts because we've brought on a group of really powerful guest hosts and a return guest, Dr. John Steubs of Tria Orthopedics and the chief doctor, medical doctor for the Minnesota Twins. And that's Brian Dozier over his shoulder, who is shaking his head yes, because Dr. Steubs keeps Brian and the rest of the Twins in good shape. And welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
We met actually the first time in Puerto Vallarta when I pulled you out of a line waiting to board a plane and said, why don't you come on our TV show?
That's been a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And, I've been here 2 or 3 times since and enjoyed it every time, Alan. Thank you.
And it's been our pleasure, really.
Thank you very much.
You have been the chief doctor for the Twins for 29 years now.
Yes, that's
And
correct. It's passed so quickly. I can't believe it's been that long.
That's taken you through a lot of different players and a lot of different situations, as well as the Twins' ups and downs.
And I think I've maybe stated this in the past. The 3rd year that I was taking care of the Twins, they won the World Series. And because of that, I got to go to the games and enjoy the spectacle of a World Series championship. And then I was also able to get a World Series ring out of that. And I thought, well, this is easy.
It's a beautiful ring, by the way.
Well, thank you. But you know, it was my 3rd year, and some physicians work for their whole career with the team and never have the opportunity to participate in a World Series. And so I thought, well, this is going to be easy. And of course, that was 25 years ago, and it hasn't happened since. So my expectations weren't quite met.
Maybe this year.
Well, we can hope. I think they're on the right track.
Now, as we sit here on December 15th, I picked up the paper today and I said, wow, we bought a new closer, Fernando Rodney. And he's been around for quite a while. And I wonder what we're going to hear about him if he's been cleared physically to join the team. You surprised me by saying, well, he was in this morning.
Yes, and so when we have a new acquisition, whether it be a veteran or a young player, they sign tentative contracts with the ball club, and then they have to pass a physical. And it's particularly important in the veteran players like Mr. Rodney, like Fernando, who's pitched at the major league level for 15 years and is 40 years old and has a lot of innings and a lot of time and wear on his body. And so he comes in and gets a physical, and we say yay or nay, and fortunately he's very healthy.
Well, that's good to hear. I know we can't talk about you know, physician, patient, privilege information, but when you say he's very healthy, I assume we're going to see him down in spring training.
Barring something else coming up, he's passed his physical, and now it's up to the club to finalize his contract, and I expect that, yes, we'll see him in Florida in a couple of months.
And actually, we'll see you in Florida in a couple of months at Fort Myers, because I know that's a tough part of your year. You have to go down there.
We've talked about this before, Alan, and I know you appreciate the fact that it's a sacrifice for me to have to go to Fort Myers 3 weeks out of the year at the end of our winter up here in February and March. I travel down to Fort Myers and spend time in spring training, and it's usually 3 or 4 weeks. And it's a very difficult time to leave Minnesota because it's so nice here and go to sunny Florida. But I'm up to the challenge, and I do that every year.
And I understand you also check on the worthiness of some golf clubs during that period.
Yes, I do have a set down there that I get to use occasionally. That's true.
So, well, we were talking before the show. And last year was a remarkable turnaround year for the Twins. And we have an incredible mix of young and veteran players. Anything you want to comment on what we have there in your estimation?
Well, this is a physician talking about these players from a performance standpoint, but you know what was unique to this past year was a set of young, talented ball players who all kind of gelled and grew up together at the major league level. Now, some of them had been there before for a year or two, but it was quite remarkable to see them gel as a team and come together as a team, and many of them took significant steps forward and all at the same time, and that generated a really good feeling in the clubhouse, and they like playing with one another, and that's a really nice thing. There's some older players, Maurer and Dozier, and him and Jimenez, the catcher, and some of the pitchers are a little older, but it's a young team, and so hopefully they will continue to get better together. But I really noted a significant change from the preceding years in the whole atmosphere in the clubhouse, and how much they just seemed to be really, not that the other teams weren't, but this team was special as to how much they like playing together.
Now, Joe Mauer has taken a lot of abuse, both physical and otherwise, during his career. He's in the last year now of his very large 10-year contract. But when we were talking before we went on air, you mentioned the difference to him. Now, he had a great year, certainly a good year at the bat, a great year in the field. And you translated that into the clubhouse, and I think that's very interesting.
Well, and I've been around for the whole time that Joe has been a Minnesota Twin, and he's obviously a terrific ball player. And he has, over the years, certainly led by example and been there supportive of his team. This year was a little bit more unique in that with these young ball players, he really stepped up his kind of leadership, mentorship role in the clubhouse. And it was noticeable. He was there for these young players and kind of led the post-game celebration when they won, and I think he's always had that ability, but for whatever reason, it really came out to a much greater degree this past year, and that helped some of these young ball players with feeling like they were part of the team.
And obviously, feeling like you're part of the team, it makes them a more cohesive group, and it certainly showed under the leadership of Paul Molitor. And there was speculation about whether he would be maintained as the field manager or not. He had a great year, and the team had a great year under him, and I think the players have a really good relationship with him from what I've seen.
Well, and I think you're right, and the players have, in the press and otherwise, have said how much they like playing for him. And it was a unique situation because these are a bunch of young kids who really, a lot of them grew up at the same time and at the major league level. They're all talented, but it takes time to believe in yourself, even as good as these players are, and become confident that you're major league caliber. And we have a mix and a core of players really at every position that are bona fide major league players. And we haven't had that full mix for a long time. And these are a bunch of young kids who are hopefully only going to get better. So it's a fun time to take care of them, a fun time to be a Twins fan, because I think it's just going to get better.
And we have a Golden Glove center fielder who I think we should put probably 10 inches of foam on the center field wall because of Buxton's proclivity to go no matter whether he can get there or not.
Yeah, and he's remarkable, and he truly deserved to win a Gold Glove. Again, from a medical perspective, I cringe when he goes after a ball that looks like it's not going to get caught, because he will throw his body after it or crash into the wall. And of course, every time that happens, I wait for him to dust himself off and get up. And he plays with pretty reckless abandon, and so he's got to keep himself healthy over the years for us to continue to be the competitors that we're becoming.
Now, how long has Tria Orthopedics been in existence?
So Tria started in 2005. So this is, we're entering 12th or 13th year. It was put together as a freestanding orthopedic center out in Bloomington, and we started a lot of the same-day walk-in and medical care in orthopedics that the rest of the community now is providing. And so I'm proud of being a founding member of Tria, because it was a unique center in the community, and now there are plenty of centers like it that have mirrored and mimicked and copied what we did.
We have several right here in Eagan, although we don't have Tria in Eagan at the moment. But it's not just the Twins that you people take care of.
Well, and you and I talked, historically we took care of all 4 professional teams, and now there are other organizations that take care of a couple of them, and we take care of the Wild and the Twins, and as you noted, college and high school. And so I see a mix of pro athletes, college athletes, and high school athletes, and they all have access to my office. What people don't really understand is that the Twins is a hobby for me. It's an after-work job, even though it takes a lot of hours. But I'm an orthopedist by day, and an orthopedist for the Twins by night and weekend.
Keeps you out of trouble anyway.
It keeps me busy.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, especially once spring training starts. There's an 8-month period where I'm pretty busy.
So in my lifetime, you used to go to see the doctor at his office, and that seems to have dissipated into large groups of doctors that practice together. How many orthopedic doctors are there in Tria, for instance?
Well, we have about 30 providers, 30 docs of different specialties, and so there have always been specialty groups around every community, but there's been a coalescence of a lot of different groups, and Tria came together as several different orthopedic groups, and that's continued in this community. And so it's rare, and it's not been the case to have the size of groups that are now present, especially in our community, and that's not even the model that occurs around the country. We're unique in terms of the size of our orthopedic groups, and other specialty groups come together in the same fashion. But this is orthopedics in the Twin Cities is a different model.
But it's really a solid model from everything I can see, and of course, from the several broken bones that I've been treated for at Tria and have come out well from. Now, how has orthopedic medicine changed in the 29 years that you're with the Twins,
Oh,
in the
my
last
goodness.
25 years, give us sort of an overview.
Alan, how much time do we have? In that there have been tremendous changes. When I started in orthopedics 33 years ago, when I started in practice, arthroscopy was just new to orthopedics. And arthroscopy, the ability to look in joints with a scope and minimally invasive surgery, minimalist surgery, was just becoming part of the community. And that has grown enormously. We used to be able to look in joints and do minor things, and now we can do an amazing amount of things with the arthroscope in fixing problems in many, many different joints. When I started in orthopedics, if you had a total hip or total knee surgery done, you spent a week to 10 days in the hospital. And those procedures are now being done on an outpatient basis, where you may have that procedure and stay overnight or stay a night or two, or even in some cases have a in-hospital procedure and go home the same day. So those are tremendous revolutionary changes in my field over the 30 plus years that I've been doing it.
It's changed the whole approach to medicine, not only orthopedic-wise, but otherwise also.
Well, and it's not just our specialty that uses arthroscopy or uses minimally invasive surgery. The technological advances and the ability to do things, there's medicine. It's interesting. I have a son who's a physician, and he was reviewing for me what he was taking as pre-medical courses in college when he was getting ready for medical school, and the things that he was taking 10 years ago when he was in college were things that I took classes and what I learned in medical school. So everything is advanced. The knowledge base, it's enormous, and I don't know how primary care doctors who have to know a lot about many things can keep up with all the advances. I'm kind of glad I'm in one specialty where I can focus on one part of the body, and of course experience counts too over the 30 years.
Now, we have a grandson who's 13. He has been an all-star in every sport that he has played, but what he loves the most is lacrosse. He is a freshman in high school, and they just, I guess, solicited him to join the varsity. He's not that big, but he's fast and he's strong. And speaking to the family, I said, I would think twice about that, because he's still 13 and he's still playing with kids who are 17 and 18 and far more advanced body-wise. I don't know if that was good advice or not. What would you say in that sort of a situation?
Well, every situation is different, but I would share your concern only from the standpoint of a size differential and a contact sport. An individual sport such as track or golf or something where that doesn't involve a lot of contact is much less of a risky sport for him. But there are kids who play as freshmen and against varsity senior players. In contact sports, there's certainly more of a risk because of the size disparity. So I think a certain element of caution and you've pointed out that speed and the ability to not get hit makes a difference, and obviously they value his talent and his skill, but I don't think you're unreasonable or unwise to at least express that as a caution, because the size differential in a contact sport can mean a lot, and not that 17, 18-year-olds aren't still growing and developing, but a 13-year-old is much less skeletally mature, and the injuries to a 13-year-old can be fractures and things, can certainly be more difficult or more lifelong problems. So it's worth having a serious discussion about it. Absolutely.
The decision ultimately is not mine. It's his and his mother and father. But I voiced that opinion only thinking back to my own non-career in sports and the fact that I didn't excel at any of them.
But I do think that the caution, or at least the discussion about it, needs to be had and is a very reasonable thing. I think that any grandfather would want to make sure that their grandchildren protected and healthy. And his parents are going to ultimately make that decision, but at least getting them to think about it and have an awareness of what he's going into is very valuable.
I envision seeing him leading the Syracuse lacrosse team back to national prominence. They're usually up there. They've
been always had
since I
very
was
good,
there.
yes.
Yeah.
Very good lacrosse teams. I have a very good friend who coaches lacrosse in this community, and the level of lacrosse players and competition over the last 10 to 15 years in this community is remarkable how much it's improved.
And all over the country.
Well, all over the country, but here in the Twin
Long
Cities,
Island used to be unique in that we had terrific lacrosse players, and a lot of the other states did not. Today, it's a much more universal sport.
it is much more universal. I, in high school, went to Michigan State in the summer, and one of the kids who was going to a program with me brought his lacrosse stick, and I didn't know what lacrosse was when I was a high schooler, and that was a long time ago. But the point is that across the country, they're exceptional lacrosse players because they've been playing. And Minneapolis, Minnesota, especially in the metropolitan area, I don't know exactly the outstate area, but the metropolitan area produces an amazing number of Division I lacrosse players. So the number of men, young boys and girls, men and women playing is enormous, and the level of competition just continues to accelerate. It's pretty amazing.
Which brings us to my next question. How young or how old should a baseball player be before they start throwing curveballs and other things like that? What danger can they do to their arm?
Well, that's still debated. That keeps fluctuating, and we always used to say that breaking balls, sliders, curveballs need to be thrown when a young player is more mature, when his bones and his tissues are able to take that stress. And so it always used to be the curveball that was the enemy of a healthy arm. And nowadays, even fastballs are a problem. And so you can't differentiate curveball, a slider, breaking ball, and fastball, because we're seeing kids throw year round. We're seeing young kids who are looking at the gun and trying to throw as hard as they can. And that can be as detrimental as throwing a breaking ball. But a short answer is a high school before they're throwing breaking balls. But much, much more important is not playing year round and limiting the amount of throwing that they do. We know it's a proven fact that playing year round and the amount that you throw is a potential precursor to arm problems, especially elbow problems.
And what a shame to lose a career when you're 17 or 18 because you worked too hard.
Well, exactly, and we are seeing Tommy John surgeries, elbow surgeries that used to be unique to the pro level, and I, 30 years ago, did not see a lot of Tommy John surgeries in our minor league players. Well, that has crept down to high school kids now. It's very prevalent in high school kids, and again, that is because of the single sport specialization. And we really always recommend that the kids try to play more than one sport and not throw year round. And because there are high school kids who are getting elbow surgery, and that just never happened when I started this journey 30 years ago.
And one more question: concussions, football, and even soccer. We now have this progressive disease that a lot of football players have shown. Is there any way to protect them better? I know that the helmeting is better today than it was, but is there any way to protect them even better?
Well,
or
I think,
would you keep your kid out of football, for instance?
I played football. I personally wouldn't, but I would really consider. The helmets are much better. The tackling techniques, we're doing everything we can to minimize concussions, but they still occur. And lacrosse occasionally, but especially soccer, heading the ball or collisions in soccer, and especially football and hockey too. Concussions are a big deal, and so we manage them better. We hope that we can limit their occurrence and that we can keep people from having too many repetitive concussion events which are correlated with the chronic traumatic brain injuries you're talking about. So you can't prevent them, but completely, and every parent has to have that discussion about their concern, level of concern for concussions, especially football. It's changed a little bit the participation in football, and and maybe that's a good thing from the standpoint of people protecting their kids. But all we can do is try to minimize them from happening. Baseball took away collisions at home plate by changing the rules on how a catcher could block the plate, and we just had our winter baseball meetings last week, and we talked about that, and it dramatically took away the number of concussions in catchers. Potentially, if we had these rules 15 years ago, Maurer would still be catching.
That's an interesting observation. Now, we refer to you as doctor, but you are also a participant or a member of other sports organizations. So what is the American College of Sports Medicine?
So the American College of Sports Medicine is a broad group of people who take care of sports medicine. It's orthopedists, primary care doctors, trainers, and I mean it's a group of and concussion experts, neurologists. It's a group of people who take care of athletes,
seeking to stay ahead of the curve in terms of
exactly.
modernization and injuries.
Well, and there's so much more that goes into taking care of athletes than what I do as an orthopedist. The primary care doctors who take care of athletes, the physiology of keeping an athlete on the field, and heat-related issues and concussions and cardiac issues, all those things are constantly evolving, and we're getting better at taking care of them. And so the American College of Sports Medicine is a collection of many talented people, take care of different specialties, all concerned about athlete health.
And we've been talking with Dr. John Steubs. John's been here before. Always a very interesting and learning experience to talk to you. Chief doctor of the Twins for 29 years. Any thoughts in passing?
I've been blessed to have been able to take care of a professional baseball team for 29 years, and it's been fun. It's been a great experience meeting all of the ball players from all the teams as they come through. But my real life has been taking care of local athletes and high school and college, and the mature senior athlete who's still active at the age of 50. So I've had a great career, and I hope it continues for a few more years.
Dr. Steubs, thanks so much.
Oh, Alan, you're very welcome. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.